Welcome to Full Exposure on location, coming to you from Jump in Austin, Texas at the 2019 South by Southwest Film Festival. With a backdrop of art installations, barbecue, music, DJs, sticker graffiti, scooters, tacos, singing nuns, quirky promotions, and bizarre loopy street spectacle, we have some fabulous guests on tap. Conversations with directors and cinematographers of some of the most inventive, funny, moving, and important documentary and narrative indie films that screen here in Austin. Join us at South by Southwest. I'm your host, Jim Camp. To open our coverage of South by, we sat in on a talk with Ava Berkofsky, director of photography based in LA and lead cinematographer on HBO's Insecure. Ava spoke with Snehal Patel, Zeiss Cine Sales Manager.
Well, let's give a round of applause to Ava Berkofsky for joining us today. So I think this is your microphone.
Oh, great. Hello.
So thank you all for coming today. My name is Snehal Patel. I work for a company called Zeiss. We make lenses for all kinds of things. We actually started in 1846. We've been making lenses for microscopes ever since then. So microscope glass, optics for glasses, optical equipment, testing equipment, lenses for binoculars, for telescopes. How many people have been to LA, Los Angeles? There's a Griffith Park Observatory where you can actually go look through a telescope. That's a Zeiss telescope you can see the stars with. And a lot of lenses for photography starting in the 1890s. And then starting around the 1920s, we started making lenses for cinema. So for about 100 years, we've made lenses for cinema. And almost every cinematographer that's ever worked in any professional way, shape, or form has pretty much used Zeiss lenses at some point, which we're really grateful for. And we're always making new products for people to try out. So we have featuring at the booth today, we have a booth downstairs in the exhibition hall, in the expo, and our booth number is 307. I encourage you to please visit. We have multiple camera setups, everything from an Alexa, a Red, Blackmagic, Panasonic, and we have a Canon camera. We have all kinds of lenses that start, less expensive for still lenses. Or still cameras like mirrorless cameras and DSLRs used for video, all the way up to your high-end for Reds and Alexas and Sonys as well for the high-end cinema. And of course, Ava's used our lenses before, not necessarily for this project, but for other projects. And we always want you to encourage you to come try out our stuff. And consider us for your next project. They're all paint brushes. They're all beautiful. All lenses from any manufacturer are beautiful. They all give you special different qualities. So we never say that we're the best or anything like that, but we definitely have a choice for you to look at. But today we're going to talk about the art form itself. So we're going to talk about the television show Insecure. And, when you watch Insecure, it's a really well-made show for HBO. It's quite popular. How many of you actually seen Insecure TV? Look at that. That's really nice to see. So quite a few of you have actually seen the show and, you're probably fans of it. So this show was started by Issa Rae, was the creator, and she's the star of the show. And she used to be in another show called Awkward Black Girl. And this is the first time that you actually heard about Issa Rae, right? Was when she was in Awkward Black Girl?
Yeah. I had a friend who was working on that show, and so I just knew about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, this is cool.
I was like, this is very cool. And they asked me to shoot something, and I was, but at the time it was a web series and I wasn't available, but it was something that I had a friend that was working on, and and I was like, yes, this is very cool. It's very cool. She has a really original voice.
Yeah, definitely. And what happened was in season one of the show, Ava was not involved. So there was another cinematographer altogether, completely different shooting style and look. And it might not seem like that to you now, but we'll look at some of the clips and we'll actually see that there was a difference in the way that the film was, the show was shot. But you came on season 2 and 3. How did that happen?
Well, after the success of season 1, one of the executive producers, Melina Matsoukas, do you guys know who that is? Yeah, right. She's pretty amazing. She's a very visual director. She did Formation for Beyonce, lemonade, pieces of lemonade. Anyway, she is a really inspiring visual creator. And because she was new in TV, she didn't have full reign over the look in season 1. So the big difference was between season 1 and season 2, she got full control. And so she was able to hire her own people. And that was when I came on. And so that was, she was looking for a new DP. And I had a film that had just come out, and sort of I was on her radar from a few different people. And I went in and met, and I got the job.
Very nice. And so when you met for the first time and subsequently, what was the process? Because, in this kind of interview, do you have to show her something? Did you have any ideas? How did you communicate that?
Well, what I usually do is I'll go in to an interview without something because I want to listen, I want to hear, I'll give my initial ideas verbally, I'll get a sense of where they're going. And, it's like a date, you figure out, do I want to date you? They figure out, do you want to date me? And then from there, after that first original meeting, I made a lookbook. And so my lookbook was along the lines of what they were interested in. And and I had some strong opinions about what I would do. I'd never really thought about shooting comedy before, but I thought this was like a really exciting project. I thought Melina Matsoukas would enable me to take some risks. So, did that answer the question?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about actual filming itself, because once you were there and you were, in the midst of it, of course, you guys had a certain type of package that you had to figure out. So what was your camera lens package?
Well, we shot on Alexa Minis, and we use ingenue zooms. And I mean, actually, we very rarely use ingenue zooms, but I carry one zoom, and it's a 12-to-1, and the rest of it is Prime's Cooke S5s. And we did a lot of lens testing, and that was the one that worked, or those lenses worked best for the sort of the beauty aspect of the show.
Yeah, because you were saying that the Cookes gave you the certain look that you wanted, and you had, done a project right before going to Insecure, right?
Yeah. I did a project right before Insecure, actually using standard speeds, Zeiss standard speeds, and I love standard speeds and super speeds. But for this, those are older lenses, and I needed something that was going to be creamy and clean. And so I don't like using too much filtration in front of the lens. So the S5s enabled me to not have to use filtration because they go to 1.4 f-stop. Sorry, I don't know if this is, I'm just going to talk minutia here, but when you shoot them wide open, they sort of blend skin tones in this way that is really beautiful and unique and worked well for this particular project.
Yeah. So then you end up going with the Cookes, and you have the Alexa Mini. Mm-hmm. Alexa Mini has a really wide gamut that it can capture all at once. So was this like a conscious choice, or were? Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, this is like, there's so many technical things about cinematography, and having a camera that is just, you understand what it can do. It does what it does really, really well, and that's your constant, so that you're not like, when you're doing a science experiment, you have one constant, and that was what it was. And it's an amazing tool. Mm-hmm. So, and it has a really wide dynamic range, and which means you can play with exposure and play with ASA, and be really liberal with that and experiment.
What ASAs did you generally stay at?
I shot everything at 1280.
Okay.
So it's a half stop higher than the camera is supposed to be.
Right. So that basically gives you actually more protection in the highlights than the dark if you go 1280, I think, than 800 a little bit.
I think it's actually technically the opposite. Mm-hmm. It's technically the opposite. It stretches out the blacks and caps the highlights. Yeah. But it enabled me to... I like using ambient light at night in cities, and just from experience, like 1600, 1280 gives you a decent base for so that you can use ambient light and rate the camera basically to that, so that you're matching it rather than relighting the city at night.
Yeah.
And I knew there was going to be a lot of night work on Insecure.
Yeah. And you had to have those skin tones really come out, and they had to work.
Yeah, I didn't want to have skin tones feel separate from the environment. And that's always how I think.
Yeah. You want that color palette to kind of work together to bring it out.
Yeah.
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 All right. So these are good things to note because we're going to show some examples now so you know what we're talking about. So season 1, again, not filmed by Ava. And I'm just going to play this in the background. So I want you to talk about like when you looked at this, like what is it that you wanted to change or be different for season 2? Because it seems like they're using a really wide angle lens, like in a shot like this up close, which kind of makes her look bigger than she is in real life.
My feeling was that, and this is kind of what I went into my interview saying, was that I feel like this show was an opportunity to create a look that's different than the standard comedy look, dramedy comedy that's been happening. And I just felt like that the lighting could be more subtle and more integrated, and that the skin tones were really getting bummed out, and that they could be really celebrated. And I just wanted to, I felt like it's a really special project and it should have a really special look, and that it should be celebrated.
So then how did you go about like planning for that? Like what was your steps to say, okay, well now I got to do something different? You mentioned that you, of course, had a lookbook and things like that, but what was technically some of the aspects that you wanted to change?
So I did a few very concrete technical changes, which is I kept the same camera though, but I changed the lens package. I went to primes instead of zooms. This was all shot on zooms, which is really normal for TV. And what else did I do? I rated the camera differently, and I changed the filtration package to almost no filtration because zooms tend to be sharper, and they also require 3 times as much light as primes do when my particular primes are wide open. So so I was able to work at lower light levels, which enabled me to switch the lighting package completely. So we went from using big HMI lights, like big movie lights all the time, blasting light at people, to thinking of a more blending approach. So I feel like with darker skin tones, you don't like blasting light at people is not necessary. And I feel like it's been the go-to forever because I don't know why, honestly. But the way that I came at it was I changed the lighting package from HMI heavy to LED heavy. And I use these tiny sources, but that are large in size, like 4x4 or 2x4 lights that are quite close. And I use them to blend light on the skin rather than illuminate it. And so changing the lenses, changing the ISO enabled me to take a different approach. And that's just personal. That's just personal.
And so then let's see the results. So here is a trailer from season 2, and tell me if it looks any different to you. So now, of course, we see the skin tone is definitely more magentas than greens than before. More telephoto lenses, so actors look skinnier instead of bigger. And then, of course, there's a huge lighting difference. So what did you think of the results, like when you saw it and actually come together?
Well, I mean, you can ask my partner. Every day I came home and I was like, God, I really messed that up. Fuck. So that's always how I feel about my work usually. Like I do my best, and then I'm like, oh, no, I'm going to get fired. I'm serious.
So tell us about like your choices here, because what you were telling me earlier is that you didn't use wide angle lenses to get some of these shots, and you stopped it at a certain focal length.
Yeah, I generally don't shoot on this show. I generally don't shoot with anything wider than a 40. I'll occasionally use a 32 when I have to. I'll use a 24, but pretty much everything you see is a 40 or longer. That's like a personal preference. Honestly, it's just like in my heart to do that. I try to force myself not to, but on sets, limiting the field of view and stacking space rather than revealing it, like what happens on wider lenses, is better for sets, because I hate revealing the artifice of a set. It's what takes you out of it. It's what takes the authenticity of character away. So, yeah, I'm really careful with that.
And I noticed that there's a lot more shaping of light. There's not a lot of just stray light everywhere. So what was the process for this?
Well, my key grip is amazing, and I'm really, really anal. And so I obviously I use electric, but I subtract light more than I add it. And that's just sort of like, I learned on film, but as digital cameras require less light, I require less power. So I'm just really controlling with grip. So I subtract more than I add, and there is no stray light. And if there is, I'm really bummed out about it.
So how would you subtract? Like, what do you use? Like negative fills, or and then how do you position them?
Negative fill is just black, so that whatever light is bouncing around doesn't land back on faces or on objects or whatever. And yeah, so I use a lot of negative fill. I use a lot of bounces, so that you don't have to add a light. You can wrap a light with a bounce rather than adding another light. So my grips work really, really hard. And I feel like it's important to me that my grip department understand that they're actually lighting. And so I'm lucky to work with a great grip team.
Yeah. And then what about in terms of when you're capturing, do you have, are you making LUTs on set? Do you have an on-set DIT, and do you do on-set color for your dailies?
Yes. Well, yes and no. So as part of my prep process, I shoot a lot of tests, and I shot a lot of tests for Insecure. And my colorist, Dave Hussey, who's amazing, and I and Melina went into the color suite with my tests and got the color palette into the place that we intended to. And so I take those LUTs that I make in prep and I use them. There's like 6 of them. They're for day exterior, night exterior, all the different avenues I could imagine shooting in. And I use them throughout the season, because I only sometimes carry a DIT. I wish I could always have one, but it's just not practical. So
in those situations, you have a loader, essentially.
Yes,
right.
I have a loader. I have a really awesome loader. But when I'm in situations that are either like multiple cameras or more complicated lighting going on, I'll carry a DIT. Like we did the Coachella episode, and I certainly had a DIT for that. And yeah.
And so what about the color correction process? Do you get a chance? And by the way, does everyone understand what LUTs are? When someone says LUT, who doesn't? It's okay if you don't. Just please raise your hand. So LUT is a lookup table, and that basically is in a digital sensor. It captures more than actually what the human eye can see at once, or what you can display at once on a television display. Digital sensors nowadays capture a lot more than what I could display on a typical home television. So what we do is we color it. We use tonal correction, contrast correction, and exposure correction to get it so that it fits within the narrow spec of an output source like a television or high quality HD screen. And we call these lookup tables, or LUTs. And this is a transform between what is normally caught in the camera and what is actually displayed on a monitor.
That's a good way to say it. I've always trying to find ways to explain that, and that was a good way to say it.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
So what Ava's able to do is you were able to see, theoretically on set, on the monitors, you're able to see literally, like she said, that I had 6 LUTs, meaning that I had 6 different choices of looks, and I'm able to see on set what I intend to show at the very end.
Yeah, and that's really important on like working with HBO, because especially my first season, I wasn't proven, so they needed to know what they were getting. And I needed to be able to show everyone on set what my intention was. And so, LUTs enable me to do that, because people can see it's closer to the final output. I don't have to say, trust me, it's okay. You know, it's not like in the days of film where you could say that, but now people, you know, it just doesn't work that way anymore. Executives, producers, everybody wants to know what's it going to look like.
And the other benefit being, of course, in editing, they're using your look so that when you go back at the end of it, when the episode's done, it doesn't look different than what you intended.
Yeah. No, totally. Because at that point, it's very hard to take something that people have been looking at forever, you know, the concept of falling in love with your dailies,
Right.
and be like, yeah, but actually, this is what I intended. You know, it's hard, even for me, you know, even for me. So.
Yeah. And then, so we were going to talk about the color correction process. Do you get time to actually sit with the colorist per episode?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard because it's scheduled later and oftentimes I'm working, so I won't be able to go in. But for all of Insecure, either myself or Melina Matsoukas is in there guiding. And then there are little pieces like a day or here or a day there when we can't be in there. And our colorist, he really knows us and he really, you know, he's a collaborator. So, yeah. But it's not often like that. Usually you have to be in there.
Yeah, because a lot of TV shows, DPs don't get a chance to actually be there in color time.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that personally. Because there's so many creative decisions to be made.
Yeah.
And if your name's on the image, you want to control the image as much as you can, and that is a complete loss of control at that point.
So it's interesting you use that word control because you really are trying to do that with the lens choice as well, all the way to the back, because you're trying to put your signature before it even gets to the editor on what it is.
Yeah, I mean, that's what a cinematographer does, you know, like even from documentary, commercials, all the way TV, film, we're shaping the image. Yeah.
So how does this differ from the process of working, let's say, on a commercial?
Well, commercials are really like the cinematographer is hired for their look or because they're there and they're really nice, you know, and you show up, you know, your crew, you scout, your crew's like, I need this, this, and this. You're like, I want this camera, this lens, and you do it and then you go away. And I don't think I've ever been in a color correction for a commercial because it's not about that. Like, it's really, you're being bought. I mean, you're always being bought, but like your services are being bought and then they're like, we're done with you. Now it's ours again. Go away. And that's fine. You know, it's in exchange for money.
And how is it different from an independent film?
Well, in an independent film, you're being hired for a different level of collaboration, usually, at least in my experience, you know? And so, yeah, they want your eye all the way through. It's personal.
And so then you're actually more involved in pre-production, of course, during the shoot, but then afterwards as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just finished a movie where the color correction, I mean, it was so important. Like, you know, when you're fine tuning a movie, it's, I mean, it's wonderful. Like you really get to make all the decisions and, it's a really creative process. You know, this is an indie movie that, you know, like a big budget, like, studio movie is going to be a different process, but the DP will usually be asked to be in there. Like it's still the DP's image.
Right. There's that respect of the artist that they're
Yeah.
going to be able to do this.
Yeah. I mean, different people are different, or different companies, different people, different producers. But, you know, I try to work with people where everyone respects each other, and it's much, much nicer that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is your background? And did you start in photography first, or did you go straight into cinematography? Or how did it work for you?
I started in photography and doing like photojournalism and I went to art school for a year and a half. And that was sort of like I learned about experimental photography, experimental film, and social, like how to use imagery for social justice. And so that was my beginning, was photojournalism really. And I stepped out and I dropped out of school and went and did kind of social issue photography, and then eventually I went back to school. I started my photography kind of accidentally landed me in a documentary film. Like literally a guy's wife went into labor 2 weeks early.
Okay.
And I was basically like there, and my friend was directing it, and he was like, I can't spend 2 weeks on the road with someone else. You need to come with me. You know how to use the camera. But I'm like, it's not different from photography. The principles are the same, So, yeah. And then after that, I just never went back. I was like, this is 100% what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. So, yeah, I literally haven't done a single still photography job since then.
So basically, you found your career because someone had a baby.
Yep. Some guy couldn't make it, and I was there.
And you were there. That's a lesson to all of you. Be available to be there.
No, it's so true. Like 3/4 of it is just showing up.
Yeah.
It really is.
So how do you feel about like when you're working on the set of Insecure? Like, is it a good team? Are people nice to one another? Do you feel the collaborativeness that you were looking for?
Yeah, I mean, what's amazing about Insecure is that everybody is excited about it. Like, this is an original voice. These are stories that need to be told, and that it's a new way of telling them. It's like, I don't think, certainly after when I came on, I just felt like it, and everybody feels this way. Like it's an exciting moment for TV, for comedy, for women, for people of color. It's like the ownership over the stories is changing, and I wanted to be part of that. And I think that everybody wants to be part of that. And so the collaborative sort of aspect of it is like, it's fun, it's joyous, and everyone's really gives their all.
Now, you also have another cinematographer that works in the show that you switch off with in both season 2 and 3. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that's Paula. And Paula
Hidobro.
And she's fantastic.
She's amazing.
Quite talented.
Very.
So another female cinematographer. And how does it feel to switch off? Because like you were in charge of actually creating that look, right? And then now you have to, because of the rules of the way things work, there's another cinematographer coming in. How does that collaboration work? Is it scary?
I don't think it's scary. So this season 3, my collaborator was Paula Hidobro. Last season, it was Patrick Cady.
Right.
And they're both really accomplished cinematographers and really talented. And it's hard for them to come in and have to take on a look. And I was really charged with because there are so many different directors and there are different DP. Well, I mean, I shoot the majority, but the way it works, you have to rotate because you have to prep. You can't do everything, or else nothing will be prepped, and that doesn't work. So, what was I saying? Oh, yeah. So working with another DP, it's like in Paula's case, I had a hand in her getting hired, because when we met, I showed her my lookbook. I showed her like, look, you're amazing, and I know your work, and I know her personally, but this is the look, and we have to keep it consistent. And I want you to elevate it and challenge it and challenge me. But we have to stay in this. These are the lenses we have to use. This is the crew I have. This is everything. And she was like, yeah, I know that. That's why I'm interviewing for this, because I like the look and I think I can do something with it. And she did. She really elevated it. And same with Patrick.
That's really nice. And so then you feel comfortable, like when you go home at the end of the day, someone else is taking over. You're like, we'll have consistency. It's going to work out.
The first couple episodes are tough. Like Melina and I both are like kind of keeping an eye on. And then I'm like, I'll be like, hey, when you did this, what about, it's really actually difficult because I respect these people like a lot. Mm-hmm. So I hate telling anyone, hey, what if you did something like maybe this lens choice would be kind of more in line with how we would do something. I very rarely do that because usually they just fall right in. But, the first couple episodes, how are you supposed to kind of anticipate everything? You're making a decision every 15 seconds, Yeah. And it all yields the final product. So to keep it consistent, at first I'm involved, and then I'm like, oh, you go, have fun, do it. And then, both of them did really spectacular work, I thought.
That's great. And then let's talk about now going from season 2 to season 3, mm-hmm. because now you've established the look. It's accepted. People like it, especially, the EP likes it a lot. Now you're going to season 3. what did you do different here? Like, what did you change? I'm going to turn season 3 trailer on in the background so people can see.
What did I change? I mean, I think that I had a lot more freedom, or not even actually. I didn't have more freedom. I just had less oversight. And so what did I change? I mean, the lighting package, the lensing, and the camera stayed the same. I switched out my gaffer and my operators. But I wanted to push the long lens thing. That's a scene that Paula did right up front. And I was like, come on, push yourself. You can do you like have a little fun. And she was like, okay. And then the next time she shot people sitting at a table, it was, she pushed it a little further, and she ended up really inspiring me. It was really exciting working with her. What else did I change? I changed.
I feel like you were bolder.
I was bolder.
We were talking about this before, that I feel like outdoor scenes, you were more stylistic on season 2, and season 3 you pushed it and did different things.
Yeah, it's true. I pushed the long lens thing, and I pushed the contrast, and I pushed the camera movement. I just tried to push myself, like I have a tendency to really want to control. And I pushed myself to mix colors I don't usually mix. And yeah, it was really just, I tried to be more bold and not get stuck.
Yeah. And how do you feel about how season 3 turned out?
I feel good about it. I mean, it was a lot of location work, and I love location work, and I feel pretty happy about it, honestly.
And it seems like in from season 1 to season 2 and 3, also there was like the production design stepped up. It seems like the costumes stepped up. And the funny thing is, you told me like in the green room earlier that there was the same people. They were the same artists that were doing season 1 and season 2, but something changed in the way that they were working.
Well, yeah. I mean, between season 1 and season 2, Melina Matsoukas got full control over the image, and she is bold. And so
what other projects has she done recently?
I mean, she did Beyonce's music video Formation, which is like, I don't know, I watch it like
it's amazing
every 2 weeks. I'm serious.
I love Formation. That video is so good.
the car, like, just, yeah. Anyway, so
I think Malik was the cinematographer, right?
No, I think on that, she works with Malik a lot, but I think Chase Irving, I think it was Chase on that.
That's right.
Yeah. So, I mean, she got handed control, and so she exerted it, and she is very specific about color in production design. So she just grabbed that. I mean, she approved every single thing that's on the walls in any shot ever.
So how do you feature that as a cinematographer? Now you have great production design, you have amazing costumes, and like the Coachella scenes that we were seeing, what a vista. I mean, you're seeing so many people and so much stuff going on, which is different than the kind of the small sets and small stories of season 1 and even parts of season 2. So how does it change the way you work?
Well, between season 2 and season 3, we did have a change in production designer. And
oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah. And so the season 3 production designer was kind of like more of a natural fit. And I didn't have to think about it. Like, obviously there were some sets that were, they were only in there once. We had to do them quickly, and they're less thorough. But even those were like, I didn't feel like I had to hide that much. Because usually on sets, I spend most of my time trying to make them feel authentic rather than just like when you have a practical location and you don't have to think about that. Yeah. But for Coachella, man, she really knocked it out of the park. Like, she was just a natural fit, and she was a natural hire, and she was Melina's hire, and she's just really good. And so working with her, we're in constant dialogue. And that's why prep is so important. I tell her, okay, I'm imagining I'm going to do a blue. I'm going to make this blue. Yeah. Like, this is the base is going to be blue in here. The base is going to be blue and pink. And she's like, okay, great. So I'm going to do this, this, and this. And then she'll be like, what about yellow instead of pink? And I'll be like, okay. So, and then we'll show each other images. We'll go back and forth. It's like one of the great pleasures of collaboration is when a production designer and you can really collaborate and they make you look good or bad. You don't do it alone.
No, you don't do this alone. That's for sure.
You know, they can really, you can spend your time and energy working against them
Right.
or with them.
Mm-hmm.
And so same with visual effects. Like I really feel strongly that everyone needs to be talking all the time.
Yeah. Because that's the way you get the best product at the end.
Yeah, and same with costume. I go down there and I check out costume for every episode, for every key scene. And
Okay.
yeah, I need to sometimes there are issues and I'm like, please don't put that bright white hat on. And other times, usually that happens very rarely. And usually it's just a matter of, okay, so this is what she's going to be wearing. Great. I will complement that using this and this.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So you do your research even when you're working over there.
Yeah, I'm really uptight.
Yeah.
I'm really
Really anal. That's what you said.
I'm really anal. Yeah.
So just to recap, here's the looks of season 1, and here we have the looks of season 2. So we can definitely see and 3 together. So you can definitely see that there was a shift there, and we have a little secret thing. We have a lookbook, visual guide that Ava has put together, essentially for the other cinematographers that work with you. Correct?
And the directors.
And the directors, because you want them to do the things the right way. So
Really
just to give you an insight into what this means, we have access to this language right here. So she's basically, this is like your looks. Like this is the lighting that you prefer. This is how you like it to be lit.
Yeah, I mean, this is the look of the show, because one of the main things I'm tasked with is keeping the look, keeping it the same, so that people will know right away when they see the show. So with a different director on every single episode and a new DP who's sort of having to find it, this is the first thing I give them. And then they take time with it and they look at it and usually they're like, okay, got it.
I'll let you worry about it. That's what they say. And so over here, you talk about framing. So you show frames and how they work. The beautiful thing about framing, what people can understand when you're studying cinematography, is that it emotionally tells you a lot. So each one of these frames speaks, it says something. It says something about the story. You could just look at the one frame and it tells you a lot. Are you trying to do that? Trying to paint this way in the frame?
Yeah, always.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that's something that gets lost sometimes. I mean, less and less because there's really amazing TV these days visually. Mm-hmm. But I think because TV is on a very fast schedule, it's easy to lose sight of framing specifically for storytelling.
And by the way, the frame on the bottom left, that's expensive because you have to throw a lot of light and control a lot of stuff to get that wider frame.
Yeah. I mean, actually, honestly, like I'll tell you what it is so we put in those fixtures, the sort of cyan blue ones didn't exist. So our art department, we collaborated on picking them, the size, the shape. Inside of those fixtures, there's a gel called Cyan 60. It's inside the sort of plastic and not expensive. The fixture's not expensive. What was expensive is hiring the electricians and the art department people to install them. And then the other colors going on there, because this is actually pretty simple. The other colors going on there is I have in my pocket, not my pocket, my truck, practical sodium lights that are built specifically for film and TV. They don't flicker and they have more color information in them.
Oh, okay.
So
they give you the look of sodium vapor without being crappy.
Right, but they still are sodium vapor.
But they are sodium vapor, but
yes,
it's a better
they just
one.
have ballasts.
Gotcha.
So that they control the flicker.
Excellent.
So I never have to worry about that. And honestly, like I did all these tests with skin tone, and these lights are not expensive. These are pretty basic lights, but I tested them against all these really expensive LED lights that mimic them and HMIs with gel on skin tone, and they were better. So I was like, okay, they're cheap. Just because they're cheap doesn't mean they're not awesome. So across the way on the bottom left, across the way on top of the building, there's a 1,000 watt. Oh, they also make them brighter than real sodium lights.
Right.
So there's a 1,000 watt lamp that is gripped to all hell, like has diffusion in front of it and is boxed in and then there's another bottomer taking it off so there's no orange on their faces so that the colors aren't mixed. There's a flag on the other, just out of frame, that cuts it right there. So, because the mixed color on their faces would be bad. Anyway, so that's actually not that crazy.
Complicated or crazy. No.
Not that. There are other things that look super simple that are actually very complicated. And
like those beauty shots or close-ups. Now, this is something short-sighting, which is a language that's in the show. And this requires some forethought, because when you short-sight somebody, you're basically saying something, right? You're saying something emotional at the time.
Yeah, it just gives you, I mean, number one, and this is how I work, is it gives you a feeling. Like before the concept, before everything, it gives you a feeling. And there's something like blunt and I don't know what the word is, but gives you a feeling. So we use that.
Almost like of unease.
Yeah, a little unease, a little feeling of loneliness, a little sort of unbalance, discomfort. Yeah. There's something lonely about it. I don't know. Maybe it's because like they're looking off frame. There's no one there. I don't know. The negative space. But we use it conceptually when we're trying to say something, trying to make something feel awkward, trying to kind of reveal the insecurity of feeling.
Right.
Yeah. So we do that. So that is something like that. I'll go in. The director and I will have already decided where we're going to do that when we go into a scene. So yeah, we just make sure we get it when we've made the decision that this is a scene that will have that punctuation.
Sure. Wonderful. And of course, your book is full of all kinds of wonderful examples. 2-camera shot using a 32 millimeter in what situations. Of course, also frames in general, but a lot of color and saturations and, what you want it to look like. Never use, not wider than 40 mil on sets where possible. So this is very nice. Thank you so much for bringing this and giving us the insights into all of this, because it's really valuable for everyone to see. So right now we want to open it up for the last 20 minutes or so that we have for questions. There's a microphone right over there on this side. So if anyone has a question, they can line up over there. That'd be great. Who has our first question for Ava? Let's give her a hand, by the way. That was a great talk. Did any of you learn something? Who learned something today? All right, look at that.
Oh, that's so cool.
Very nice.
I often wonder if because I just talk, so if anyone is unclear on anything I said, because I was just talking and not looking up usually, just please ask for clarification. And knowing what a LUT is really helpful. So
Great. Yes, sir.
Great talk. Thank you so much. And thank you for bringing great visuals. That really helped. It is a visual medium. I'm a very small time filmmaker, and I just would like to hear more about your experience on the interplay between the DP and the director, and maybe you can key off what you were just saying there towards the end about, we've decided where we're short-sighting and stuff, because again, very small-time film work. I feel that some directors don't really understand the frame in the same way. There may be more focus on getting a performance out of the actors, others really do, and I'd just like to hear more about your experiences.
Sure. I mean, it's really interesting because there's such a variety, and I've worked with directors who just literally leave it to me. They have nothing to say about it. I'll always offer things, and they'll be like, "Great," and just let me go. That's fun. And then there are directors who want to make every decision together, and on this show in specific, usually the directors. I mean, actually, some directors are kind of push the framing as well. But usually on this show, because the look is so established, we do it together. And I'll offer sort of ideas of hey, this would be a good spot for for this kind of shot, it would harken back to 2 episodes ago, you know, but I'm the one who knows that because I was there, you know, and for TV directors, they're in and out so fast. It's really its own thing. But we go through the whole script. I try to shot list everything, and they also try, and then we both usually fail. But the scenes that that we've sort of selected of the episode that that don't the scene, like the important scenes from the episode, the emotional ones, the big ones, the big in scope, we'll do together. But there's really a whole range. And in TV, the DP kind of has more responsibility because we're the consistent ones. And like for this show, the look is a character in the show. So, yeah.
Great. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Mario Gates. I'm a musician, filmmaker, and cultural historian, and I have a couple questions, if you don't mind. What 3 cinematographers make up your artistic blueprint? There's a scene in the where Issa is with the guy and they're going to their taco spot, and the framing is like the camera's in the distance, and also you film behind the behind the you know, the glass bar where they're ordering, and that felt very Emmanuel Lubowski to me. And you were talking about how you liked control. You liked control, like a lot of, like David Fincher's a lot of control. How do you like tether that line between like the control within that? And if you could also, I missed that. Could you reiterate how you get better? What lights you used, or the lights that didn't work and what did work? I think it was LED lights, the cheap LED lights that worked for getting better tone on black faces when you're filming.
Okay, I'm going to go backwards from your series.
Absolutely.
So, low wattage lights that have a larger face, like a larger surface area, to me work better because you're not, with darker skin tones, I think that the way it's been done historically, and I don't know why, is that you think, okay, people with darker skin, we need to add light. And I think that that's been, for many reasons, the way things have been done for me. I want to make skin tones reflect light. And so actually like putting something close to a face that gives a surface to reflect on the skin, rather than pounding the light onto skin, works better. So I use LED lights that are low wattage and have, and I put canvas in front of them, muslin. And depending on people's skin tones, and on this show I have the benefit of, like, I shoot these people over and over, so I know which color of canvas works better on each skin tone. Or sometimes, like, Yvonne, who plays Molly, works really well with grid. So that's a whiter cloth. Anyway, so it's really experimentation because everybody's skin is different. Anyway, so that's how I do that. And I don't use I do use HMIs, but for skin tone specifically, I use smaller units with a larger face. What was the question before that?
With 3 cinematographers.
Oh,
That was the first question, not the second question. But that's me being technical.
I'm sorry, but we'll have to like just pick one of them because we'll have to.
It's all good. I mean, it's tied together. They're both tied together.
Yeah.
They're both tied together. The 3 cinematographers, and like you some of your shooting on that episode where he was behind with the framing and like behind, like doing it in front of the glass with the taco seemed kind of very like Emmanuel Lubowski to me, because he does a lot of like where like people come in to like frame him, or like letting the camera be in there. Yes.
Well, I love shooting through things in general, but I have to say that was Paula. Paula did that, and she really nailed that episode. I was like, you're making us look really good, bro. I really appreciate it. And we both like shooting through things. Like it offers a sense of place. And Chivo, who, because I can never say his name right, but Chivo, who you're referring to, is certainly someone who I look to. But honestly, Roger Deakins, Chivo loves wide ass lenses and like getting right up in there, and his work is beautiful. For me, I I like more medium and longer lenses. And so Roger Deakins is someone who I look to a lot, Ellen Kuras and Rodrigo Prieto. I mean, talk about shooting through things, talk about like elegance in image rounding. Rodrigo Prieto is just like, pow.
Using a telephoto for wide angle.
Yeah.
He does that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
like, yeah.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Good questions, by the way. Really nice crowd.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah. You guys are awesome.
Andrew from Atlanta with a little group here. Thank you so much, by the way, for your talk. It was really great. Thanks for getting really nerdy, which is helpful for all of us.
All day, every day.
So a little bit deeper actually into the question he had about the close-up lighting. So can you be really specific about the type of fixture and the wattage that you're using? So you're talking about a low light, much closer in. So is there a particular angle you're trying to keep it a nice, like a tighter angle to? And then does that cause any problems with shadows, or are you able to keep it nice and like the muslin cloth's obviously going to diffuse it quite a bit for the fall off and the wrapping?
Okay, so I go crazy with it because it's really about blending skin, right? And so, like I said, with each person, I kind of, through practice and testing, I know which cloth looks best with them. So I'll use like a 2x4 LED. I'll put a piece of muslin on the face of it, and then like this far off, because they usually come with little barn doors. I'll put another piece, and then I'll shine that through a 4x4 muslin. And that muslin, the last thing that it hits is what it will blend with. Wow. So like, for instance, with Issa Rae, she looks amazing with unbleached muslin. So that's kind of that canvas color you're used to. And Daniel's character, he looks much better with paper. So I'll go through full grid instead of muslin at the end. Muslin, and then full grid, which is whiter and reflects better on his skin.
Oh, okay, I'm Team Lauren, so I want to know what you use for him.
Muslin.
Okay.
Yeah, he's good with muslin. But yeah.
Sorry, and slightly connected to that question is, what's the relationship between you and your gaffer? It sounds like with the control thought process. So I also DP as well, like, but that relationship between the gaffer, is he basically, I mean, I know there's a relationship, but is he basically an instrument to accomplish your will? Or do you actually like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's people that are real collaborators, and then there's sometimes a person that is great to work with, but they are there because they're very helpful at supporting your will being accomplished.
Well, I think that there are different kinds of relationships across the gamut, and on different jobs. Sometimes I'll use people differently, and I have a few people I work with. Instrument for my will, I would never say that, but maybe it's a little true. Yeah. There's always a collaborative aspect to it, and like, so there's a common thing where people are like, gaffers will get offended if you call the light. If I'm like, I want a 5K Fresnel tungsten right there, I'll tell the grip I want it to go through shower curtain and then muslin, blah, blah, blah. And, gaffers will be like, some old school ones will be offended. They'll say, just tell me you want a soft light over there that's wrapping and blah, blah, blah. And sometimes I'll do that when I have time, because people will surprise you and their ideas will sometimes be better than yours. And I love that. And that's what I'm always looking for in a collaborator. But a lot of the time you're like, I just know what I need and let's go. And they're like, okay, you know, it's different, but I'm a collaborative DP, but I also am very specific. It's like it ebbs and flows.
Right. Thank you.
Thanks for your question. Very nice.
Hi, I'm jumping off of that question a little bit, but going more for the camera department. And you said framing was one of the big slides, but it was just framing and then visual images. So I was wondering if you could maybe expand a little bit about how you approach your framing, and also how you talk to your camera operators to get that sort of between like the creative, letting them do and find something, but also getting what you see.
Right. Well, I feel bad for my camera operators, and I respect the position so much, and I am even more uptight about my framing. I was a camera operator. I went from sort of like photographer to sort of documentary DP, and then to make money, I would operate for other DPs, and then sort of made the jump. And I respect the position very much, but I'm so anal, and to me, framing is like lighting is very important. It gives you the tone, but framing tells the story. And to me, I micromanage almost every element of it, and then I let the operators kind of go once they really know where I'm coming from. But and I have some very special operators that on certain projects I'm really just like, do something great, and they do something great. But usually, especially on this show, I'm like, put here, this lens, exactly this, go this, exactly that. I feel very, I'm not a super fun DP. I shouldn't actually advertise that because I always need to work with people. But I'm very, very uptight coming from an operator background in the way I see image making.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for the question.
Hi. Oh, shit. Don't step on this bottom thing. My question is about your prep process as far as you're shooting every other episode and your crew's also working the entire time.
Yeah.
How do you manage and plan? Obviously, you're being able to prep with your director, but then talk with your crew about the things you need them to be prepared for.
Well, my crew is amazing. And so on scouts and for the working out the technical stuff and even some of the creative stuff with my crews, they have best boys. So it goes like gaffer, best boy electric, key grip, best boy grip. So while they're off on set, their best boys stay with me, and they go on scouts with me. And so the communication process is through them, and the technical stuff they organize. The best boys do anyway. So I'm really on my own in some ways, but I have a lot of great support. And then for bigger stuff, I'll have to pull the keys off of set. And like when we did the Coachella episode, for instance, I was like, I just need everyone on the same page. So they would spend a half day with me and they would send their best boys to set. It's really sort of like, they have teams that are just as good as them. Like their best boys are oftentimes people get best boys who are more experienced than them so that they can handle the technical stuff and the keys can handle the more creative stuff. I mean, obviously the keys need to be very technical as well, but yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks for your question. Yes, we have another one. Come up to the mic.
I don't know if this is a stupid question, but
I'm sure it's not.
Since you were talking so much about how you have to take into account their different skin tones, I was kind of just wondering, what about like natural hair? Do you have to do anything different with that and like take that into account?
Can I just say this is actually a really good question? I do not find this question stupid whatsoever. That's a very good question. It's important. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I don't. Everybody has different quality skin and hair, and I don't find it's easier with natural hair or not natural hair. What I'm always trying to do is find a way to light people so that their shape is the lighting complements the shape of their hair and the shape of their face. So it's not one way or the other, but when like for straightened hair that does this and won't like has to be that way, and for anyone regardless of like skin type or natural hair or not, if it's like this, it's very tough to get light in there and to make and to fully round the face out, but yeah, I mean, I love natural hair personally. So I get excited when people wear their hair natural, and it's not any the challenge is the same, finding ways to make the shape work best.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you for the question.
Yeah.
This will be our last question.
Hey, I'm just wondering in terms of when you move from a wider shot to a tighter shot, what kind of modifiers are you changing? Do you do that? Mm-hmm. Are you shifting color? And then kind of how does movement affect the way you shoot? So you shoot quite telephoto and you use a lot of grip. Do you leave room in your frame for movement, or is that very specific and then you'll change?
I I mean, it's different all the time. So with framing and movement, my rule is always that the camera only moves when the character moves or when there's an energetic move. Like I never, it kind of drives me crazy when the camera's just like drifting around for no reason. I feel like you're just distracting from bad acting, bad sets or something. I'm like, why? So I only move the camera when a character is moving. But that said, oftentimes I'll just make a frame and be like, this is it. Let them live inside of it. That's really fun and kind of like old school. But yeah, camera movement is its own language. It's, yeah. So for this, I live on the dolly a lot. The long lenses means that the dolly moves are often less extreme. But yeah. And then what was the other part of the question?
The other one was on when you're shooting, switching from say a wide shot, like the opening establishing shot of the bar or something like that. Are you shifting your modifiers closer or changing the muslin to get the skin tone you want?
I won't change the color at all of anything because that will drive you crazy and it like trying to match it. Yeah. And usually there's no reason to. I will like softer light happens the closer the last modifier is to the subject. So because faces in this show, I usually use soft light. Yes, like for that, it's funny, like you don't realize it, but like that bottom picture of Daniel is like, we're on a stage there. And so, well, there was no wide in that one, I guess. Will you go to the last slide? I can kind of explain. So in the bar, right? So in there, this is a lot of practical lighting. There are a lot of par cans kind of lighting up the columns and the people back there. But then there's a top light. There's a chimera over top to kind of like pop out our heroes there. When I came in, I lowered the chimera. I added a piece of grid over it, which changed the color a little bit. But it's minutia, you know, but I'll lower it, I'll get it closer, and then I'll add either an highlight or a bounce and some negative. And so, yeah, I am changing the modifiers, but if you mess with the color too much, it's just going to make you crazy later.
Thanks. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you, audience. Let's give yourselves a hand for being so wonderful, coming out learning something today. Ava, thank you so much.
Yeah, I hope it made sense.
That's all for now on Full Exposure from South by Southwest. In Austin, MJ Johnson was our director of photography. Dan Walnicki audio engineered and edited. Huda Khalid associate produced. A very special thanks to Laurie Welts at Film Fatales for introducing us to the filmmakers who appeared on the show.